The major news of the past 24 hours has been basically the acquittal of the officers involved in the death of Breonna Taylor. As you recall, she is the 26-year-old hospital worker who was shot multiple times when the police stormed her house on the 13th of March. That's right, none of them have been found culpable in her death in the shooting of an unarmed woman over an allegation of drugs. Now, one of them has been charged with a crime, but very surprisingly, not for killing someone. Brent Hankson has been charged not with her death, but with wanton endangerment for firing into a neighbor's apartment in Louisiana. That would be the Kentucky District Attorney who made this decision. An extreme indifference to the value of human life. So he's been charged with something, just firing poorly. Just not the person that he was firing at and killed. Or helped kill, anyway. This is a low-level felony offense, and for a felony offense it carries a minimum of 5 years in prison, and he is being charged with 3 counts of it. So theoretically, if we assume he'll be convicted, which he very probably won't, he could be looking at 15 years in prison for endangering other people's lives, because, other people go to jail for that, so the police should too, right? Now, the analysis concluded that Detective Miles Cosgrove fired the shot that killed Miss Taylor. However, he will not be suffering any consequences of his actions. Once again, the police are committing a murder, essentially, and not being held accountable for what it is they do. I don't know what in other profession you can just shoot unarmed people and that be something that's acceptable. Maybe an executioner. Rather ironic or appropriate, depending how you look at it. But what's interesting here is that he's being reprimanded or charged for doing something that could have killed somebody, but not for the thing he helped actually kill. I mean, not the incident which actually did kill somebody. So let me get this straight. He was acting unreasonable, could have killed someone, but actually did help kill someone. That's essentially the charge being thrown around. Basically, they've been acquitted of using excessive force. They were defending themselves, and the grand jury found that they were merely defending themselves against an unarmed person. And there were multiple people on their side. Is what it is. But here is something I thought was funny. The district attorney, Mr. Cameron, he's a Republican. He's also the state's first black attorney general, added, "We simply act on emotion or outrage, there is no justice. Mob justice is not justice. Justice sought by violence is not justice. It just becomes revenge." Like what the police did. That certainly wasn't justice, and that was sought with violence. Gunning what is essentially an innocent, unarmed person down in their home. I mean, the irony of this statement should be really obvious to anyone who's paying attention to what's going on. It's even shocking that he could say this without any self-awareness whatsoever. But here's some context that might explain some things. Cameron is a protege of Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. That's basically the guy who trained him. And Trump has him as, and some say that he's been tagged as heir apparent. This is the guy who's going to take over from Mitch McConnell when he dies. And, well, the character of Mitch McConnell is already well known. And if this is a continuation of that, that should say something about the character of Cameron. He's also on the 20-name shortlist that Donald Trump has put out for a nomination to the Supreme Court vacancy. So he's a protege of Mitch McConnell, and he's one of the men that Trump wants to fill the Supreme Court. So you're supported by Mitch McConnell and Trump. I think that might be some necessary context to him, and maybe says something about his character which should be more closely looked at. Although it's interestingly, this is what's interesting. Although the grand jury said nothing wrong happened, Still, on September 15th, the city settled a lawsuit against the three officers brought by Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, agreeing to pay her $12 million and enact police reforms. That's one of the very interesting things about U.S. law, or at least about equity in general, where you can legally, according to the law, have done nothing wrong, but still have to pay restitution. So it's like you did do something wrong, but you also didn't do something wrong. It's really strange how this works out and how the law formulates this. It frankly doesn't really make much sense to me. But going back to what Cameron said about violence not being justice, I would like to add that the violence that's being carried out now on Black Lives Matter, etc., against the unjust system is the result of a lack of justice. That's also another irony that we should look at, is that the violence happening on the streets is due to a lack of justice that's occurring in the courtrooms and the police stations, etc. So it's really hard to claim that, violence isn't justice. Well, where's the justice? You know what I mean? It's like, things are wrong. Don't do anything about it, because then you're just as bad as the person causing the problem. And that's a very liberal position. That's the thing. The old centrist liberal position. One group starts a large killing of, let's say, Jewish people without using a certain word. And there's another group of people who are, let's say, communists, and put an end to that mass killing of the Jewish people. And the liberal will stand there and say, I can't tell these two things apart. There you go. Liberalism in a nutshell. It's a very liberal thing to do, to not be able to tell the difference between the perpetrators of violence and the people who carry out violence to stop the perpetrator. That's a very liberal thing. It's also a very nonsense thing to do. That's tantamount to saying self-defense is illegitimate, or that pacifism is the only way. I mean, that's essentially what you're saying. And no person who does that, no names, would certainly not be able to call themselves a leftist, and should rightfully call themselves a liberal. So once again, here we are at a system of injustice, another injustice being carried out, and it will very likely be met with more violence by people on the street. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.